Coming home can be hard if you're a veteran of Iraq or Afghanistan. You may feel like you're all alone, but you're not alone. At IAVA.org, your fellow vets are all around you. Join our free online community, get the resources you need, and connect to other vets who know where you're coming from. IAVA.org. We've got your back.
Welcome to this edition of Lancaster Perspective. I'm Mike Miller. My special guest today, Carrie Woody, the administrator of the Lancaster Public Transit System. Hi, Carrie. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Thanks for showing up today. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. We've been trying to do this for a while.
We have been trying to do this for months, and we finally were able to hook you up, and we're glad you're here. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
You've been pretty busy lately. There's a lot of stuff going on in the city.
A little bit. Last year has been a whirlwind, trying to keep up and figure out what's going on.
Now, let's talk a little bit about Lancaster Public Transit, because it started, you just did the city of Lancaster, and you've expanded quite a bit.
Yes, I actually started with the city in 2009, halfway through the year, and we were servicing just the city of Lancaster with a 5-mile radius past the city limits. In 2010, we expanded to add the city of Pickerington and Violet Township to our service area. And then last year, 2011, we went completely county-wide.
Oh, was that an adjustment to make that big a leap?
You know, it wasn't, because we already had individuals that were using our service. But because we didn't have local funding sources to actually provide a county-wide service, those individuals were paying up to $18 one way to get where they needed to go.
Now, how many riders do you have, or ridership numbers?
You know, in 2011, we hit nearly 82,000 rides, which is huge for such a small rural community. Most communities our size do around 50 to 60,000. So we definitely have a huge demand here in Fairfield County.
Now, are there any plans for expansion? I know that you've already gone to the county, but as far as other areas too?
Did you ever watch Pinky and the Brain?
No, I missed that.
And they'd say, "What are we going to do today, Pinky?" And it was take over the world. We're not going to take over the world, but expansion-wise, you know, at this point, I think we're pretty good where we are. We've seen a lot of budget cuts over the last year, so we'll probably stay county-wide for now. I know one of the pushes statewide is to regionalize services, not only with transit, but for a lot of different departments. So in the future, you know, 5-10 years down the road, there could be some type of regional service between Fairfield, Hocking, Pickaway counties.
Now, do you ever talk to those other counties now and say, you know, gee, we'll meet you at the county line and go from there, or is
We do. And it's funny because coming into this, that had never been discussed before. And in a lot of, actually, we get a lot of phone calls that individuals still see Perry County buses in our service area and driving around Lancaster.
Right.
But what we found for us, from an efficiency standpoint, rather than trying to take a vehicle all the way into Zanesville or Logan or Columbus, it's much easier for us to meet those systems on the county line. So what we typically do is, if we do have someone needing to travel inter-county, we contact those counties and try and meet on the county line.
Now, how many vehicles are in the fleet? How many?
We currently have 15 vehicles.
Wow. Are they all buses? Are they cars? Or?
We have 12 buses, actually no, 13 buses and 2 sedans that are old retired police vehicles. So they have some get up and go on them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've been in a couple. As a city councilman, went out on a couple nights with some policemen. It was an experience. I really enjoyed it.
The drivers enjoy driving those cars.
Now, is this something you wanted to do as a little girl growing up? Because I know at one time you were a Columbus Destroyers cheerleader.
Oh, thanks, Mike.
Is it something you wanted to do?
You know, honestly, I came, as you know, from a background at United Way and spent 8 years at United Way and had a blast there. Love Sherry Orlando. And in my interview for this job, you know, it's funny, Mike Courtney, the service safety director, says to me, no one grows up saying, I want to be a public transit administrator. It's just, it's not one of those things that you apply for in college as a degree to be a public transit administrator. So can't say that I had a desire to be the transit administrator. Knew nothing about transit prior to my job experience here, but it has been a great fit for me. It's like the nonprofit department of city government.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So
now, I know because you've called me a couple times. Companies can advertise on the transit buses. Talk
Yes.
a little bit about that.
what we do is we try to encourage businesses to advertise on our transit buses because it helps us with our revenues. For every dollar we bring in locally, the federal government matches another dollar. And then those dollars go into the vehicles on the road providing the service. So what we do is we sell the advertising on the windows of the buses. And then all of that advertising revenue is then matched with federal grant money.
Which is important now because you just had some reduction. You're going to reduce your hours or change your hours. And
Yes.
You had some reduction in funds.
Yes. We had a reduction in local funding, state funding, and federal funding going into 2012, up to $230,000, which directly results those vehicles on the road. So what we are doing to try and offset some of those reductions is rather than running until 9 o'clock at night through the week, we're going to only operate until 6 at night.
Now, phone number, website, if people want more information about the transit system?
Yep. You can always call us. We are at 681-5086, or you can visit the city's website at www.ci.lancaster.oh.us, and then click on the departments, and you'll find transit under the departments.
Now, the funding source is usually all grants for
Yes.
the program. Do you like working with grants? Is it something, because more and
Do
more.
I like it?
Well, more and more agencies are they're seeking outside funding, and grants
Yes.
is a big one. Is that something, or do you go back to Mike Courtney and Mayor Smith and talk to them, and which I give you credit for, but is that
You know,
something that you like doing?
Along those lines where you don't grow up saying you want to be a public transit administrator, I definitely don't wake up in the morning saying I want to be a grants writer. They're very tedious and time consuming, but in the same breath, it's very rewarding. You know, the time that you spend writing those grants, when you get that final letter that says you've been awarded this amount of money, it's definitely worth it. And then when you see the bigger picture of all the individuals you're helping get to work, get to school, get food, medical, it's definitely worth the time put in.
Do you ever meet with other counties and talk about different ideas or what works and what doesn't work?
We do. We try and meet quarterly. And then what I've done since I've started with transit, because I knew nothing about transit, is I try and get to at least 4 different transit systems a year and go to their operations and see what they're doing firsthand to try and find best practices to implement here.
What about technology? I mean, buses, do they change so often, or are they all the same? Or are they diesel or gas?
We have both. They used to be all diesel. However, with the clean and green initiatives going on nationally, we have to order off of state bid purchasing. And the cooperative purchasing agreements now are only gasoline vehicles. So we've started, getting more gasoline vehicles versus diesel. And we try and at least replace 2 buses a year. We have buses with close to 200,000 miles on them out on the road right now. So
Talk about what is the cost to ride a bus? I mean, can they buy passes, or how does it work?
public transit is very affordable. The general public, as long as you schedule it in advance, it's $2 each way, anywhere you want to go in Fairfield County, $2 per person. If your family's traveling, the adults would pay $2, ages 0 to 4 ride free, and then ages 5 to 14 ride half price with the paid adult fare. So it becomes very affordable for families to get transportation. And then the state actually runs a program that's called the Elderly Disabled Program. And these are their guidelines, not mine. According to the state, if you're 65 and older, you're elderly.
Not there yet.
I was going to say, and I didn't set that. I have a lot of individuals arguing with me. But if you're 65 and older, or if you have a permanent disability, then you can ride for $1. So very affordable.
Now, do you get people call in and say, why don't you have a route that comes to here or a route that comes to there? Or...
Yes, and a lot of individuals, we do get a lot of phone calls because they compare us to a CODA. And they want to know why we don't run like CODA. Unfortunately, if you look at the demographics in a rural area, especially once you get outside of the city limits, if we had a bus stop in Amanda, only 3% of their population could access the bus stop. and along with the other outlying areas. So what we do is we provide demand response service. So rather than having the bus stops that you would wait at, you actually wait at your house, we pick you up at your home, and then we take you to your destination. So we take you from point A to point B, and there are no bus stops to wait at.
Do you have extended hours during like holiday seasons or anything like that?
No, we don't. If anything, we decrease our hours because the demand just isn't there during the holidays.
What's the biggest challenge that you face running the Lancaster Public Transit?
I'd say probably the biggest challenge is that local funding and the federal funding, making certain that you have enough money to keep the vehicles on the road to meet the demand. The other challenges we face is you never know when you're going to run into traffic. So individuals that have to be at work by a certain time, making certain that they're not late to work, they're not late to school, they're not late to a medical appointment. And those are probably the two biggest challenges.
If Carrie Woody could have any job in the world,
Oh my.
what would Carrie Woody want to do? Right? I mean, tomorrow they said,
You
that's
know,
what you could do.
I'd have to say being a professional runner.
Really?
That's my hobby.
Marathon runner.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the marathons you've run in.
You know, I've done a couple in Indiana. I've done the Flying Pig, of course.
Well, tell people what the Flying Pig is.
It's in Cincinnati, Flying Pig, and it's the fun one. It has a
Aren't
lot
they
of
all
hills.
fun if you're a runner?
Oh,
Aren't they
they're
all
all fun. And of course, you do the Columbus, and I just try and stay locally, staying in the state or surrounding states. I haven't gone nationally yet. I have a lot of friends wanting me to do Vegas. I have to wait until the kids are a little older to do Vegas, though.
Now, how did you get into running? Just when you were young, you ran, or?
Yeah, just as a hobby, a nice stress relief. And then as every time I had a child, it became more and more important to run because once you're out there, they can't find you, they can't catch you, they can't cry, Mom, no juice, no snacks. I'm not giving them my running route, and they're not going to find me.
They're not going to get you anywhere they can.
Yeah.
That's so. What else do you do besides running? I mean, I know you've got 4 active kids. And
I do.
You do a lot of stuff.
I try and stay involved in as much as I can. I'm on the board of trustees for Big Brothers Big Sisters and Friends of the Parks, Kiwanis. So those keep me pretty active. And then, of course, with 4 kids, we have basketball, football, and baseball, soccer. And my husband coaches basketball. So right now we're basketball 6 days a week.
Now, where does he coach at?
Pickerington Central.
Oh, okay.
He's the assistant with Coach Francis. And they're having a wonderful season.
Like I said, I watched them the other day. They played up in
Cleveland.
Walsh College or someplace.
Yeah, they played Cleveland St. Ignatius. And that's who beat them for the state title in football. So that was a big game.
That's right, because they were talking about
that. Was their first loss for the season, and boy, was that difficult.
So you
Long week.
So you prefer basketball or football, or?
You know, climate-wise, I prefer basketball. You always know what to expect. Game-wise, football. Favorite sport's hockey.
Really? What's your favorite team?
Well,
Blue Jackets? No, you're not going to take.
Because I worked for the Blue Jackets, I have to say Blue Jackets, but I've been an Avalanche fan longer than a Blue Jackets fan.
Really?
But then I also like the Flyers.
That's a lot. How'd you get into hockey?
You know, I've just always liked hockey. And even before we had a hockey team here, you know, you'd watch it on TV. And back then, really the only teams you could watch was Colorado Avalanche because they were the big team. And then I started working with the Blue Jackets, and so then you kind of grow an affinity there. But then I like the Flyers too.
Wow.
So.
Now, your husband's basketball coach, has he picked a national champion yet, or is he Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, Syracuse?
He's Ohio State all the way. He's an Ohio State grad, Ohio State all the way. So I would like to see Kentucky. I'm a Kentucky fan. But he's right now, all he can think about is that state title for Pick Central.
Right, yeah.
He wants that high school title. So
Well,
he's not concerned about college.
Yeah, that's interesting. So through all this, and you know, you're working with the transit system, you're balancing all these different things. And sometimes you just think, boy, where am I today? You know.
Thank God for calendars. There are times that the kids have to remind me, Mom, we do have to do this tonight, remember? No.
Now, how old are your kids? How old are they?
12, 11, 5, and 3.
Wow.
Yeah. It's crazy. There are days that I think, what was I thinking? Obviously wasn't, but it's fun though.
When we talk about the transit system itself, And we talked about vans and cars and buses. What about rail? Ever discuss rail transportation with other counties?
Not necessarily with us. There's discussion state level for rail, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of that discussion, but nothing to go through the rural communities. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with access. If you look at a lot of our rural communities, we're definitely an aging state. And so the needs that we have are to go door to door, because with aging population, they need the accessible vehicles that require the one-on-one attention to get them on and off the vehicle, in and out of the house. So for us, rail probably just wouldn't do so. It probably wouldn't be very successful.
Who uses the demographics of transportation? Senior citizens or young adults or college kids? Or?
The common perception is that it is just low income and elderly. Actuality is we have moms that take children to daycare and then on to work because they don't want to have to pay 2 car payments or car insurance, especially with the rising prices in gasoline. We have individuals that we take to work. A lot of individuals that go to post-secondary education at OUL, OU Pickerington, Fairfield Career Center. We have students that ride to practice every night because mom and dad are working. My kids would be included in that group, in that subgroup. So we see everything from 7-year-old children going to after-school activities, St. Mary's children that ride to and from school, all the way to the elderly and disabled population. It is such a vast variety of individuals using the service.
I didn't realize all that. I would not have thought of all that.
And I wouldn't either. And like I said earlier, prior to this job, I knew nothing about transit. And my perception was elderly disabled. But when you look at the actual ridership, elderly disabled is less than 50% of our ridership.
Wow. So when you met with Mike Courtney and Mayor Smith and they were interviewing and they asked you different questions, were you looking at them thinking, I don't know if I want to work for you guys or not?
I'm on camera. I'm not going to answer that. They may watch.
Well, they've been on the show before. They've been here.
They may watch. Yeah. They're wonderful. Great interviews, great people. No, I truly do believe that. And I do think that we are very blessed to have both of them in leadership positions here. And I say often, Mayor Smith is just a dynamic person because he is a mayor, but he's also a community member. And he's that person that just gets in, rolls up his sleeves, and he does whatever he needs to do. So I have always admired him and respected him. And Mike Courtney's the same.
Do you follow politics?
Oh, I try not to. Kind of have to in the position, but I try not to. I try and keep my distance.
Well, Carrie, we appreciate you coming in today and giving us an update on the Lancaster Public Transit. One more time, phone number, website people can go to?
Yep. Our phone number is 681-5086, or you can visit us on the website. It's the city's website at ci.lancaster.oh.us.
And don't forget we can advertise. Businesses can advertise.
Absolutely.
Always looking for that.
Always looking for advertisers.
Good. Well, again, we appreciate you coming in. I know with your busy schedule, you've got a lot to do. Are you off running now, or what are you doing?
I wish. No, on to another meeting.
And before you got here, you said you had 2 meetings this morning. So, well, again, we do appreciate you coming in. And
hey, I appreciate you having me.
We'll get you back on. We get through all the funding issues and all those things. And
thank you.
Let us know. We'll get you back on.
Thanks.
Thanks very much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You've been watching Lancaster Perspective. Remember, till we meet again, let's make a difference.
Flashlight and the batteries?
Yes.
Did you make sure we're not missing anything in the first aid kit?
Yup.
Did you go through the plan with the kids again?
Yes.
The more you prepare today, the more you'll be able to reduce the devastating effects of a tornado, an earthquake, a power outage, or any other disaster. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed. Visit ready.gov.